True, I'm nervous. Very dreadfully nervous. But how can you say that I'm mad? Listen. And observe how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It's impossible to say how the idea first entered my brain. For I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. No. I think it was his eye. Yes, that was it. He had the eye of a vulture. A pale blue eye with a film over it, and whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. And so I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now you think me mad, but you should have seen me, and how wisely I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than the entire week before I killed him. Every night, about midnight, I would open the door to his chamber so gently so as not to disturb his sleep. Once inside, I lit my lantern so cautiously so that a single thin beam of light shot forth and fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights. But I found that the eye was always closed, and so it was impossible to do the deed, to kill the old man and his evil eye. But upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious. But he must have heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly as if startled. Not a second or two passed before he sprang up in bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept silent and still. For a whole hour, I did not move a muscle, and still he sat up in bed listening, just as I had done night after night after night. Although he neither saw nor heard me, he could feel my presence in the room. And that's when I heard it. The sound of the old man's heartbeat. It grew quicker and quicker and louder and louder. The old man's terror must have been extreme, and still his heartbeat grew louder and louder and louder. I thought the heart must burst. And then a new fear seized me. The sound would be overheard by the neighbors. No. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open my lantern and leapt into the room. The old man shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor, and I put the heavy bed on top of him. And the heart beat on for several minutes. A low, dull, muffled sound. And then it ceased. The old man was dead, and his eye would trouble me no more. Now, if you still think me mad, you'll think so no longer when I describe to you the wise precautions I took in the concealment of the body. I worked hastily but in silence as I dismembered the corpse. I then took up 3 floorboards and I placed the body underneath so carefully. I then replaced the boards so cleverly so that no human eye, not even his, could detect that anything had been done. At the 4 a.m. hour, there came a knocking to the street door, and I went down to answer it, for what did I now have to fear? There entered 2 men who identified themselves as police officers. A shriek had been heard by the neighbors in the night, and they had been sent to search the house again. I smiled. For what did I have to fear? I invited them in and bade them search well. At length, I led them to the old man's chamber, showed them his treasure, secure, undisturbed. The shriek, I assured them, had been my own, in a dream, and the old man, I said, out of the country. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought 3 chairs into the room. My own I placed on top the 3 boards. The officers were satisfied. My calm manner had convinced them. They sat, and I answered cheerily as they chatted of familiar things. But not after long, I felt myself grow pale, and I wished them gone. My head ached, and there was a ringing in my ear, and still they sat and chatted. No doubt I now grew more pale, but I talked more fluently, more confidently, yet the noise, the ringing steadily increased. A low, dull, muffled sound, and still they sat, and still they smiled. I talked even more quickly, more confidently, and still the noise increased louder and louder and louder. Oh God! What could I do? It increased louder and louder and louder. Was it possible that they heard enough? No. They heard. They suspected. They knew. They were making a mockery of my horror, and still the noise increased louder and louder and louder. All right! Taunt me no more. I admit the deed. Here, tear up the plains. Here,